This morning I'm going to replace this horse waterer. So this thing, I have messed with this thing quite a lot. I've been here several years ago and I dug this thing up completely. It had a split fitting down at the bottom and it was just leaking water like crazy. And it's just constant maintenance. It's got this paddle that the horses come and push on. It's off now, but when they push on it, it fills up and they drink, and then they let go and it drains back underground below the freeze line. So it's down there 4 or 5 feet and it's got a valve at the bottom. The water comes underground from the house to it. But this thing is just constantly requires adjustment. I can tell right now it's out of adjustment. It needs just a little tiny bit of slack so it doesn't keep the valve on. If the valve's on at all, it doesn't drain all the way and then it'll freeze. But if you slacken it up too much, it doesn't flow enough to actually fill. There's a little like spring ball valve at the bottom that has to have enough water pressure behind it to slam shut and then come up. And it's just like you make the adjustment by taking this whole top out, and the whole mechanism slides up on a little tiny 1/2-inch PVC pipe, which you can easily break, which I have broken, and it flexes in there. And so you change the length on the cable in there, and by the time you slide it back down in there, everything's turned and twisted a little bit. The chances of the adjustment being right are slim to none. So we're going to upgrade this to a drinking post, which is a much more solid design, and it's the first one I've done, but I'm looking forward to trying it out. I can tell it's a much more solid design, and all the adjustment is done right at the top. So first thing to do is move this little shed out of the way, and then also we're going to put a hydrant over there by the barn. Well, as is often the case, there were some surprises with this job, and it started raining, so I wasn't able to keep recording. But since the last little time lapse, I finished installing and plumbing the drinking post and the hydrant, and I pressure tested this new system and it held pressure great. And then I hooked it up to the house system and pressure tested it from the house out, and it did not hold. And the tricky thing here is I couldn't just dig up the old line and replace it, because the old line and the power ran together. So I knew that because for 2 reasons. One, the son of the person who originally put this in lives next door, and he told me they did. And I traced out the power, and the power comes around the barn here, and it comes right here, like literally right behind the waterer. So I knew they were in the same ditch. They split off, the power splits off there, but I knew they were in the same ditch, probably with the water being 4 or 5 feet deep and the power 18 to 24 inches. So digging over top of that wasn't a good option. So we opted to run a whole new line, a new 3/4 inch, 160 PSI black poly line from the house. So I came out of the house about 5.5 feet below grade. Ran all the way down to here. It's easy to run 5.5 feet there, which should be plenty deep, not to freeze. But when I got to about where that cleanup bucket is, I started hitting ledge. And I was able to pick my way around it and get the trench at least 4 feet deep around the various ledge. And so what I ended up doing is I put 3 inches of foam board over this entire thing. So here and it had a little bit of ledge here where I could only get 4 feet deep. So we've got a minimum of 4 foot depth, and we've got 3 inches of foam board everywhere, covering the whole base of this, all of the water line, all the way up to the house. So that should be a nice upgrade. There was suspicion that something froze last winter, but it was unclear where. The issue, the old drinking post wasn't draining properly, so it could have been in there. Really hard to tell. So I was doing a little investigating, and I found the old pipe here right next to the power. So I dug right along here parallel to this, and I found the old pipe. So here it's only 3 feet deep. It does have blue board over it, but it transitions down to where the drinking post is, and the blue board ends kind of here. So there's a section of pipe right through here that was 3 feet down. So not great. So much better product now. 4 feet deep, 4 to 5.5 feet deep, 3 inches of foam board over the entire thing. This should be a good solid system. So now I've already backfilled the top half. I just got to backfill this last part. Okay, this one's a wrap. This drinking post is pretty cool. Much more solid design than what was here. So the horses just come in and they push on the paddle. The bowl fills up, and then they can drink, and then it drains back down into the drain field underground when they're done. Here's the hydrant. It'd be nice to have water at the barn here. All winter long they were running a hose from the house down here, so this will be convenient. Last thing I got to do is just clean up a little bit of old foam board that came out of the hole and head on to the next one.